Matt Gaetz is the absolute worst, quite frequently. And when he's the worst, usually not much comes of it, certainly nothing good. Usually he just skates on by. Occasionally he gets investigated for alleged human trafficking. But this time, something good came of it. He decided to viciously mock people who were just trying to do good in the world, and it ended up producing millions of dollars of fundraising for abortion access. And so we are very lucky to be joined on the program by the political strategist for Gen Z for Change, Olivia Julianna. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
No, we're thrilled to have you here too. I from the very beginning of your back and forth with Matt Gaetz, I was watching every iteration of it. And I know that you've talked about it a lot, so I apologize for making you reiterate any of this. But when one of these high-profile right-wingers tweets about you, it can lead to a lot of abuse. You seemingly handled it like perfectly, but tell me, what was it like when you saw that you had been targeted in this way?
I think like a lot of people just assume, because first and foremost, I have a very bubbly personality. Like I'm really nice, and also I'm young. So I think people were like very concerned about me being bullied. But when I saw it, I laughed because I was like, oh, this idiot. Like he really doesn't understand like who he just picked on. Because like I kind of have this reputation of embarrassing public officials. Like I've had beef in the past with Greg Abbott, Glenn Youngkin, Ken Paxton, and it never ends well for them. And so I was like, oh, you're so stupid. Like, why would you pick on me of all people?
Yeah, it's just like he thought he could. And by the way, if people don't remember, so he targeted you individually. He had just come off of doing this speech about nobody needs to worry about abortion activists because all of them are ugly. That was effectively what he was saying, just to give people an idea of intellectually where the state of the Republican Party is at. And then to target you individually, I mean, he could have never predicted it would result in what it did. So we haven't given people an updated count on how much money was raised for a few days now. Where is it currently at?
It is at $2.2 million. We're about 30,000 from 2.3. And to like put into perspective, a lot of people don't understand just how dramatic that is. In 2020, the National Network of Abortion Funds raised $9.4 million. So in the span of a week, we were able to raise like over 20% of that because of Matt Gaetz.
Yeah. Has he responded at all? I know you've challenged him multiple times to put out a statement about this whole thing. Has he responded?
Yeah, so when he was asked directly by a reporter at the Capitol, and his response was like, America is a pro-life nation. No amount of solicitations will change that. It's always a shame when people advocate for murder, like of children. And so my response was like, if you care so much about children, why did you vote against funding for baby formula in the middle of a national shortage?
Yes.
Like it's just the math isn't mathin'. Like it's not adding up here.
And against human trafficking. He was one of the people, but that squares sort of with who he is and what he has done. But I wanted to ask you, Olivia, like, where do you get the strength to go up against not just people like Matt Gaetz, but also a lot of their like troll armies? Aren't your thumbs tired of blocking? Like, where do you like find a well of strength, given that the internet especially is so unfriendly to young women, women of color, like constantly targeting those folks and us, even though it's always like the Matt Gaetzes who are like, you're trying to cancel me.
I don't block. Like I'm very like set, and I don't block. I don't delete comments. I don't restrict people, because the thing is, like, I grew up in a rural Texas community as a queer, disabled Latin woman. And so like anything someone online is saying to me, I've already heard throughout my life. The difference is now, like, after years of working on myself mentally, I've come to the point where like, you're not going to hurt my feelings with things like that. And also like, I just feel like I I grew up watching like professional wrestling. That's like where those like memes came from. Is like, I've always been like this. Like I've always been very opinionated and outspoken. And so it's just who I am, which is why I laugh. Is it's because like, if you're gonna break anyone's armor, like to get through, it's not gonna be me.
So I feel obligated to ask an immediate follow-up. Who was your wrestling role model in that case?
CM Edge. Edge followed me on Twitter. I was like,
very
cool. Oh, nice. I used to watch Edge way back in the day, probably like when you were like 2 years old. I used to watch Edge. Anyway, let's not go into ancient history. So the right loves to pride themselves on like, over the last few years, we're the ones that get online stuff. We're the ones who get memes. We're the ones who know how to troll. And that's seemingly the only thing they draw pleasure in their life from. Do you think that the path that you're sort of, that you're taking, where you are in their face, you're throwing it right back at them, do you think that's the path? Is that for everyone? Or do you think it takes a certain special either background as you're talking about, or like, cause it's not easy for everyone to weather the sort of harassment that you seem to brush off so easily?
I think it's something that people as a whole, especially like within the Democratic Party, people need to embrace more. Cause like me personally, I am sick of politicians not having a backbone to do what's right or like push for legislation that's right because they're concerned about the backlash. And especially as like someone who lives in Texas, I'm just so annoyed with people not fighting for what's right. And so I think people really need to kind of embrace this kind of like the motto is like, mess around, find out, like do it. Like these people need to be put in their place. And I think like for far too long, they have not faced strong opposition. And so I think now we're to the point where we have to be strong in our opposition and throw it back at them because they're expecting us to kind of be like, this is offensive and you're so disrespectful. And like, that's what they want us to do. So if we don't do that and we're like, are you really the person to be calling me out for this? And you use their same tricks against them. It's like they short circuit. And it's so satisfying to watch.
Okay, tell me about that fire when it comes to Democrats. How do you and Gen Z for Change hold Democrats who you obviously being in Texas, this is a much better lot than what you currently have. But yeah, like how do you bring that fire to some Democrats who are also just kind of mealy-mouthed and like, they want you to stand up, Olivia. They don't want for them to stand up.
I think like I was at a town hall this past week with Beto O'Rourke, and he said it himself as he was like, it's Texas women have never waited for someone to ride in and save the day. They've always been the ones to save themselves. And so I feel like that's kind of where a lot of young people are, is like, we're not waiting for adults or generations before us to save us or help us in these situations. We're actively organizing and doing the work to make the difference that we want to see. So I think like you're seeing it more on the back end of politics, is like, it's less about ostracizing politicians who are already in office and more about organizing to vote in people who will actually do the things we want them to do.
Right. Yeah. Get them excited. And it's hard. I mean, I don't know. What candidate do you feel like you're excited about in Texas?
My absolute heart is Mike Collier is running for lieutenant governor of Texas. And it's really funny because he's this old straight white guy, but he is the most fierce and loyal ally you will ever meet. And I've met him several times. I'm very close to him. And I think like that's the kind of energy we need to see, is people who know and acknowledge like, this might not be my place to talk about this issue, but it's my job to uplift those who are in the position where they need that issue talked about. And Rochelle Garza as well. She's running for attorney general. She faced Kavanaugh and Trump in court and she won. And because she won, now young people in detention facilities who want access to abortion are given what's called the Garza notice and are told of their rights to reproductive health care because of Rochelle Garza. So there's a lot of really great Democrats in this state who are running for office this November.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we're gonna have to reach out to Mike Collier. I think that would be a really interesting conversation. So thank you for mentioning him. So in just the last week or so, you had Kansas. They struck down that attempt to strip away protections for abortion from the Constitution. But on the other hand, Indiana passed basically a total ban. So you win some rights, you lose some rights with America. I'm curious we have a lot of people watching that really care about these issues. It drives their politics. What are some things that you think they should focus on in terms of strategy, either locally or at the state level or federally? What should we be focusing on in the next few years in this area?
You need to vote in every election like it's just as important as the presidential election. What a lot of people don't know is the anti-abortion movement started with people specifically targeting city councils and state legislature seats. And so that's kind of how Republicans have been able to take all this power, is by targeting local government. That's something that Democrats haven't embraced as much. So if you're somebody who wants to see that difference, it's gonna take time, but you have to build up the coalition to get there, to empower each other as we're going along. So pay attention to your city council candidates, your district attorney candidates, your sheriff candidates, because they're the ones that will make the difference on whether or not someone is arrested for having an abortion, or whether or not that arrest warrant goes untouched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have one other question I want to ask you, because I know that in your advice for the Democrats, you talked about making sure that we bring in Democrats who are actually going to do what they say they're going to do and are actual fighters. Like there are ones who, they on paper have the right positions, but they get into office and they hide behind the filibuster and they accomplish basically nothing. In this area, is there anyone that is being bandied about for 2024 that you think would be an actual fighter who would be able to rally people to get some laws passed that would help to expand access and all of that? Is there anyone you're looking to?
I think someone who is kind of like really underrated in terms of their election right now is Sherry Beasley. She's running for Senate in North Carolina, and the DNC, DCCC is not giving her the backing that they should, because Trump only lost he won North Carolina by 2 points, and there's no Republican incumbent that she's running against. So I think that's a really underrated race that people should be paying more attention to, because I think that she potentially could be that 51st vote that we see John Fetterman touting all the time. So I think just paying attention to Senate candidates in states that aren't just Pennsylvania or Florida.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to throw me into the group that hasn't focused enough on that race. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit. So thank you for the recommendation.
I've gotten the text messages. I'm on the text message chain, and I'm like, ignore. But I'm just kidding. No, I wanted to ask you just one quickly about young women right now. You're 19. Obviously you work with a lot of youth. You're in Texas. What are you hearing from them in terms of like this fight around abortion rights, this fight around access after 50 years of not having it protected by those who should have had it protected? What's the sentiment? Is it cynicism? Is it not, or the same spirit as you're saying, got to roll up our sleeves and do this damn thing ourselves?
It's very much, there's a lot of anger, and I think that anger is being channeled into motivation, because I know like friends I have, family members I have who have never voted before are registering to vote because they're so mad. And so I think like in 2020, we saw an 11-point increase in young people voting in the election. And I think that number is gonna be even higher in midterms. Like I think we're gonna see presidential level voter turnout in November.
Will this be your first time voting?
Yes, but not because of my age. People write Texas off a lot, and they're like, Texas is a red state. Texas is not a red state. Texas is a voter suppressed state, and I know that from personal experience. I have not been able to vote because of Texas voter suppression laws. And so now my first election I'll be voting in is alongside candidates that I've been working for the last year and a half. So I'm very excited. And I think that there's a lot of other people out there who have had to overcome these barriers that are working even harder to do that now because they want to vote so badly.
Do you mean like you were able to register at 17, or what specifically around suppression?
Yeah, so like in Texas, it's really hard to get your ID. And so I didn't have an ID. So because I didn't have which, by the way, you cannot register to vote using a university or high school ID, but you can register using a handgun license. And so I didn't have my driver's license or my ID, so I couldn't vote, even though I was a United States citizen born and raised in Texas. Couldn't vote, but I can now. So very excited about that.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you one final last question, just because you mentioned this candidate. So obviously, you like to like rumble with people on social media. One other person who's drawn a lot of attention for doing that this cycle has been John Fetterman. What do you think about him as a candidate and his style?
I think it is a breath of fresh air. I love, because what I think is watching Democrats do what like me and Fetterman have done in the last couple of weeks, is by doing that, you're showing that you don't even take your opponent seriously. You see them as a joke. They're not even worth real campaign attention. So I think the strategy of doing that has been genius, because it's delegitimized Oz as an actual opponent.
Yeah, he's become a joke. No, I love it. Yeah, so I wish we could talk forever, and maybe we could talk about you co-hosting at some point. That might be fun.
You're smart as hell, Olivia. Like this whole teen raises money. Nah, I mean yes, but like dope young activist fighter, like just all the things. Like you've got such a long career ahead of you, and I say career in the best sense, not like
Thanks.
Exactly. Yeah, and I just want to say Texas has been pretty depressing over the past few years in a lot of ways, and some of the stuff they were doing even before the Roe thing. But having lived in Texas, I went to UT. Like it also generates a lot of hope. There's some great candidates who've been winning in Texas in the last year, and Cisneros came really close. And to see you doing what you're doing there, like Texas is such a focal point of both sides in the future. And so I love seeing what you're doing, and it was great to get a chance to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we're gonna talk to you again hopefully soon, Olivia. Thank you so much. Everyone, definitely follow Olivia on social media to follow her work, and also to follow her absolutely viciously mocking some of the worst people in the country. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.